In a world where every thought, every struggle, and every victory is posted online, we've lost something sacred. We live in a time where people feel compelled to share everything. Every high, every low, every fleeting moment. Scroll through X or Instagram and it's all laid bare. The good, the bad, the mundane. People live, tweet their morning coffee, snap gym selfies, and vent about their bosses in real time. Nothing is off limits anymore. Life has become a 24/7 reality show where the more you share, the more you're seen, and the more it feels like you matter. You wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone. How many likes did that last post get? Did anyone comment on your story? Are you trending or are you invisible? We've grown so accustomed to this constant broadcasting of our lives that we rarely stop to ask, is this what we're meant for? Is this how it's supposed to be? But here's the thing, wisdom tells us otherwise. Some things are meant to stay between you and God. Your deepest struggle, they're not for the world to dissect in a comment thread or debate in a group chat. Your good deeds, they don't need an audience clapping in the background or a viral video to prove they happened. Your plans, your prayers, the quiet whispers of your heart, they're too precious to be thrown out for anyone to judge, twist, or trample. The Bible says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. That's not just a nice saying to stitch on a pillow. It's a command, a call to protect what's sacred, because not everyone deserves access to the rawest, most vulnerable parts of you. Oversharing invites the wrong voices. Curiosity that's more nosy than caring. Gossip that spreads like wildfire, or worse, advice that pulls you further from peace instead of closer to it. Think about the last time you vented online. Maybe it was a rough day, a fight with a friend, a moment you just needed to get off your chest. What did you get back? A flood of emojis, hearts, praying hands, a few, you got this, comments from people who barely know you. Maybe a troll telling you to suck it up, or a well-meaning aunt with a 5-paragraph sermon that completely missed the point. Did it fix anything? Did it heal you? Or did it leave you more exposed, more restless, picking through the noise, searching for something real? I've been there. I once posted about a bad week just needing to breathe and ended up with a dozen DM ranging from pity to preaching. None of it helped. It just made me feel like I'd handed my heart to a crowd that didn't know what to do with it. I'm not saying we should bottle everything up and never talk to anyone. There's a time for community, for wise counsel, for leaning on people you trust. But there's a difference between sharing with discernment and throwing your soul out there for the world to pick apart like vultures on roadkill. Today, let's dig deep into what's worth keeping close, because God sees it all anyway, even when the likes, retweets, and followers don't. There are truths God whispers to us, not with thunder from the heavens, not with a booming voice that shakes mountains, but with a quiet conviction that settles deep in our souls, like a steady hand on your shoulder when the room is spinning. These aren't just warnings to scare us straight or rules to box us in. They're lifelines, pulling us back to Him, anchoring us when the waves rise high. They're the kind of truths that cut through the noise of this world, the endless chatter, the 24-hour news cycle, the buzz of notifications, and remind us who we are, whose we are, and what really matters when the screens go dark. Here are 4 truths you can't afford to ignore. 4 anchors to hold on to when life gets loud, messy, and downright overwhelming. First, your deepest personal struggles. They're not meant to be shouted from the rooftops or splashed across a Facebook post for the algorithm to chew up and spit out. We all carry battles no one else can fully understand. Silent fights against fear, shame, regret, or just the weight of being human in a world that never slows down. Maybe it's the memory of a choice you made years ago that still haunts you when the house gets quiet. A night you drank too much and said things you can't take back. A job you walked away from that could have changed everything. A relationship you let slip because you didn't fight hard enough. Maybe it's the anxiety that grips you when you think about the future. Bills piling up on the kitchen counter, kids growing up too fast and asking questions you don't know how to answer, a job hanging by a thread while your boss keeps piling on more. Or maybe it's a wound no one sees, a betrayal that cut deeper than you'll ever admit, a loss that hollowed you out, a dream that slipped through your fingers like sand no matter how tight you held. The world tells us to spill it all, to lay it bare for everyone to see, because that's how you get support, right? That's how you feel less alone, by turning your pain into a hashtag, a status update, a cry for help in 280 characters or less. Struggling, send prayers. We've even got a language for it now, but that's a trap, and here's why. Shared too soon, and you open the door to judgment, empty sympathy, or worse, people who don't get it trying to fix you with cliches that sting more than they soothe. I've seen it happen too many times. A friend of mine, Lisa, posted about a rough patch in her marriage. Not the gritty details, just enough to vent. A little, I'll pray for us at the end. Within hours, strangers were in her DMs offering marriage advice like they'd known her for years. Cousins she hadn't talked to since the last reunion were stirring up drama with told you he was trouble. And a coworker was gossiping about it over lunch at the office. Did it help her? Not a bit. It made her feel like a specimen under a microscope, watched, dissected, judged. She told me later, I just wanted someone to hear me, not turn it into a soap opera. That's what oversharing does. It takes your pain and hands it to a crowd that's more curious than compassionate. Now contrast that with Hannah from the Bible. Her story's in 1 Samuel if you want to look it up. She was desperate, barren in a culture where that was a curse, mocked by her husband's other wife, Peninnah, who'd flaunt her kids like trophies. Year after year, Hannah's heart broke, longing for a child, her prayers unanswered, her hope fraying. Did she run to her neighbors crying for their pity? Did she gather a crowd to hear her sob story, hoping they'd feel sorry for her? No, she went straight to God. She poured out her soul in the temple, weeping so hard that the priest Eli thought she was drunk. Her lips moving, but no sound, just raw, unfiltered anguish. But she wasn't speaking to man. She was speaking God. She made a vow right there. Oh, Lord, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you. And the Bible says God heard her. He didn't just listen, he answered. He gave her Samuel, a boy who would grow up to be a prophet, a leader, a hinge in Israel's history. Your struggles don't define you, God's grace does. Take them to him first. He's the only one who can carry what you can't. The only one who sees the tears you don't post about, the fights you don't live stream, the nights you wrestle with demons no filter can capture. The world's not a safe place for your deepest pain. People listen for all the wrong reasons. Curiosity that's more about their entertainment than your healing, gossip that spreads faster than you can delete the post, or just to feel better about their own messes by comparing them to yours. Some will twist your words into something you never meant. Others will judge you silently behind their screens. And a few might even tuck it away to use against you later. Remember that time you said, but God, he listens to heal. He meets you in the dark when no one else is watching, when the house is silent and the phone's off. And he lifts what's too heavy for you to bear. I remember a time I hit a wall, lost a job I'd poured everything into, savings gone, staring at a stack of bills I couldn't pay. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post it, just sat in my car one night, parked in an empty lot and prayed. No words at first, just breathing. Then a shaky, God, I don't know what to do. Nothing changed right then, no lightning bolt, no instant fix. But I felt lighter, like someone had taken half the load. A week later, a friend called with a lead I hadn't asked for. Small gig, but it kept me afloat. I didn't need the world to know. God did, and that was enough. Keep that sacred space between you and him. That's where real strength is born. That's where the battles you don't share get fought and won. Econ, your good deeds in charity, don't do them for applause. There's a temptation in all of us, a little itch to want recognition, to hear someone say, oh wow, look at what you did, aren't you amazed? We live in a culture obsessed with self-celebration, fundraisers with photo ops and donor plaques, donation posts with humble brags like a just doing my part, volunteering that comes with a shout out or a viral reel, caption #giving back. You've seen it? Someone hands a sandwich to a homeless guy, but the camera's rolling, the likes are racking up, and suddenly it's less about the sandwich and more about the spotlight. We've even got apps that track your generosity, how many hours you served, how much you gave, complete with a leaderboard to show you're better than the next guy. It's not new. Human nature has always craved a pat on the back, but now it's louder, shinier, harder to escape. But Jesus flips that upside down. In Matthew 6:3-4, he says, when you give to the needy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. than your Father who sees what is done. So it's just a don't brag. It's a don't even let yourself dwell on it. The moment you chase praise, it's no longer love, it's a transaction. You're trading kindness for a pat on the back, a boost to your ego, a bump in your social cred. I knew a guy once, quiet type, not big on social media, just a regular dude with a beat-up old Ford truck. His name was Tom. Every Saturday, he'd load up that truck with groceries, canned goods, bread, diapers, whatever he could afford, and drop them off at homes around town. Families who'd lost jobs, single moms stretched thin, elderly folks who'd never asked for help. He knew who they were, kept an eye out. No one knew he's doing it. No pictures, no tags. Didn't even tell his wife half the time. She just noticed the pantry was lighter and figured he'd been at it again. I only found out because I caught him one day unloading a bag of canned goods, beans, tuna, a loaf of bread on a porch down the street. I asked, "What's this about?" He shrugged, scratched his beard, and said, "They need it. I've got it. That's all. That's it. No fanfare. No applause. No look at me." Wow. And that's the point. The world doesn't need to see your kindness. God does. And he rewards what's done in secret. Look at the widow in the Bible, the one Jesus pointed out in Mark 12. She dropped her last 2 coins into the temple offering, 2 tiny copper mites, all she had to live on. And no one noticed. No one clapped. No one threw her a parade. No one wrote her name on a wall. The rich guys were tossing in handfuls of gold, making sure everyone heard the clink. But Jesus saw her. He said her gift was worth more than all of theirs combined because it came from her heart, not her ego. She didn't need anyone to know. God did, and that was enough. Compare that to the Pharisees who made a big show of their giving, jingling their coins, standing where everyone could see, soaking up admiration like it was oxygen. Jesus called them out in Matthew 6:2. They've got their reward. That's all they got, the fleeting applause of men. A quick hit of approval that faded by sundown. True goodness doesn't need a spotlight. It shines brighter in silence because it's pure, not performative. Think about the last time you helped someone. $1 to a guy on the corner. A meal for a friend who's broke. An hour fixing a neighbor's leaky faucet. Did you tell anyone? Did you feel that little urge to post it, to snap a pic, to let people know you're one of the good ones? It's natural. We are human, wired for connection, for affirmation. But there's freedom in letting it go. When you give without strings, without a camera, without waiting for a thank you, you're not just blessing someone else. You're setting yourself free from the need to be seen. My grandma used to say, "You do good and let it lie." She was a farmer's wife, hands rough from years of work, heart soft as the bread she baked. She'd make pies, apple, peach, whatever was in season, and leave them on porches around town. Widows, shut-ins, families down on their luck. She'd sneak out at dusk to set the pie down and slip away before they could catch her. I asked her once, "Why don't you tell them it's you?" She smiled, wiped flour off her apron, and said, God knows who baked it. That's plenty." She didn't need their gratitude, didn't need a thank you note, didn't need a shout out at church. She knew God saw it, kept track of every crust, every quiet act of love, and that was enough. I tried it once, left a bag of groceries for a coworker who'd been out sick. No, nothing. She never knew it was me. But I saw her smile at the break room table a week later, talking about how she'd made it through. That felt better than any of thanks ever could. God sees every sacrifice, every unnoticed act of love. Every time you choose kindness over credit, he's got a legend no app can touch, and his rewards don't fade with the next news cycle. Third, fear will try to drown you, but faith keeps you steady. Fear is everywhere these days, isn't it? Scroll X for 5 minutes, and it's all there. Doom and headlines screaming at you. Wars breaking out in places you can't pronounce. Economies tanking with layoffs left and right. Wildfires raging through forests you've never seen, flood swallowing towns you've only heard of. But it's not just the big stuff. It's the quiet fears that sneak in, the ones that don't make the news but keep you up at night. Will I make rent this month, or am I one paycheck away from eviction? Am I failing my kids? Too busy to notice they're slipping. Too tired to help with homework. Too broke to give them what I had growing up. What if I'm not enough? Not smart enough to keep this job, not strong enough to hold my family together, not good enough to become the person I promised I'd be. Fear whispers in your ear, you'll fall apart, you'll fail. Give up now, it's easier. It's a liar, and it's been lying since the beginning. back in Genesis 3, the serpent didn't attack Eve with claws and fangs. He came with a question. Did God really say? He twisted the truth, planted doubt, and fear took root, pulling humanity down with it. That same whisper echoes today through screams, through silence, through the cracks in our confidence, trying to pull us under. But faith says, even if I don't see the way, I trust the one who does. Picture this. You're on a boat in a storm. Waves crash over the deck, wind tears at the sails, rain stings your face. You're soaked to the bone, hands shaking on the wheel, unable to see land. You're sure you're done for. The water's rising, the whole groans, and you can't stop the storm. You're not strong enough to calm the sea, not skilled enough to outrun the wind. But you have an anchor, a heavy iron thing, rusted but solid. You drop it, it plunges deep, catches on the ocean floor, unshakable. Suddenly, you're not drifting anymore. The storm still rages, waves still pound, thunder still rolls, but you are held. That's faith, unshakable. Grounding you when everything else shakes. The Apostle Paul knew about storms, literal and otherwise. Read 2 Corinthians 11. He lists it all, shipwrecks that left him floating on wreckage, beatings that broke his body, prisons with chains he couldn't break, mobs that wanted him dead. Yet in Philippians 4:13 he wrote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He wasn't boasting about his own grit or toughness. He was pointing to the anchor that held him through every storm. Fear fights loud, it roars like a lion, claws at your peace, tries to sink you with every what if it can muster. But faith fights stronger. Think about the last time fear won. Really think about it. Maybe it was a job you didn't apply for because you were sure you'd flop. They'll see right through me. I don't have the experience. Maybe it was a conversation you dodged because you couldn't face the fallout. If I say this, they'll hate me. They'll leave. Maybe it was a dream you buried because the what-ifs got too big. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? Now flip it. Imagine if you had chosen faith instead. What if you had said, I don't know how this ends, but I know who's with me? What if you had stepped out, shaky but sure, trusting that God had your back? Fear wants you small, stuck, scared, hiding in the corner of your own life, playing it safe, never risking the fall. Faith calls you to stand, to move, to believe that God is bigger than the storm, bigger than the odds, bigger than the voices saying you can't. Look at Peter, crazy, impulsive Peter, the fisherman with a mouth bigger than his brain. Matthew 14 tells that he's in a boat with the disciples, middle of the night, waves tossing them like toys. And Jesus walks out on the water, calm as you please. Peter yells, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come. Jesus says, come. And Peter steps out of the boat, onto the water. Because Jesus said so. For a second, he walked, waves crashing, wind howling, but he walked feet on liquid like it was stone. Then fear kicked in. He looked down, saw the chaos, felt the spray, and started sinking. What am I doing? I can't do this. But even then, Jesus didn't let him drown. He grabbed Peter's hand, pulled him up, and said, why did you doubt? Faith doesn't mean you'll never wobble, never slip. It means you got someone who won't let you go. Every day, two voices battle for your attention. Fear screams obstacles. You can't, you won't, you shouldn't. Faith whispers promises. He can, he will, he's here. Which one are you listening to? Let me tell you about my cousin Jake. He's a wiry guy, all elbows and dreams. For years, he was terrified to start his own business. What if I fail? Kept him stuck in a dead-end warehouse job, clocking in, clocking out, hating every minute. He'd sketch ideas on napkins, custom furniture designs, but never showed anyone, scared they'd laugh. One day, he just prayed, God, if you're in this, I'll jump. And he did. Quit the job, cashed his last check, rented a tiny workshop. It wasn't smooth sailing, lost money the first year, botched orders, doubted everything. Customers bailed, tools broke. He'd call me at midnight saying, I'm an idiot, this was dumb. But he kept going, kept trusting, kept praying over every splintered board. Now he's got a thriving shop, handmade tables in homes across the state, 5 employees, a 3-month waiting list. He'll tell you it's not his win, it's God's. Fear almost stole that, kept him in that warehouse, counting boxes instead of building dreams. Faith gave it back. Or take my old high school coach, Mr. Daniels, big guy, voice like gravel. He got cancer a few years back, stage 3, brutal. Chemo drained him, hair gone. Weight dropping, couldn't even stand some days. Fear told him, this is it, you're done. But he'd sit in his recliner, Bible open, reading Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. He'd say, God's my shepherd. I'm not lost. It took 2 years, but he beat it. Back on the field now, coaching kids with that same gravel yell. Fear roared. Faith roared louder. Where has fear pinned you? What is it holding you back from? Faith is waiting. Drop the anchor and hold on. Here's the truth that ties it all together. You're not alone in this fight. Life is messy, struggles hit hard like a fist to the gut, fear creeps in like fog rolling over a field, and time feels short slipping through your fingers. But here's the good news, God has already won the war. The cross wasn't a defeat, it was victory. Nails, blood, and a cry of it is finished, shook the earth and shattered chains. The grave wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The stone rolled away, light spilled out, and death breathed its last. You don't have to overshare it. God sees you. Every crack in your armor, every quiet cry in the night, every hope you don't dare to speak, every scar you hide under your sleeve. You don't have to prove your worth through likes or praise. He already claimed you as his own before you took your first breath, before you typed your first post, before you even knew your own name. Stop chasing the world's approval, running on that treadmill of validation, panting for a nod from people who will forget you by tomorrow. Instead, start running toward his promise, steady, eternal, unshakable. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:13 to stand firm. And that's not just poetry. It's a battle cry. Think of David facing Goliath. 1 Samuel 17 paints it vividly. A kid with a sling and a few rocks, barely past shepherding sheep against a giant who had crushed armies, 9 feet of muscle and sneer. David didn't win because he was strong. Those arms weren't lifting boulders or because he was clever. Those rocks weren't magic. He won because God was with him. 1 stone, 1 shot, slung with a prayer. This is for you, Lord. And the giant fell face in the dirt. Not by David's power, but by God's. Or take Sarah, my old neighbor down the street. Tough lady, single mom, 2 kids, no breaks. She lost her job during the pandemic waitress gig, tips dried up. Then she lost her house. Bank took it after too many missed payments, foreclosure notice taped to the door. She could have given up, moved in with family, called it quits. But she kept praying, kept trusting, kept knocking on doors, job boards, temp agencies, anything. She would sit on her steps with a cup of coffee, Bible open to Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. She didn't post about it, didn't need the world's applause. She simply thanked God, tears in her eyes, kids hugging her legs. That's victory, not loud, not flashy, but real, bone deep real. The battles will come, oh, they'll come relentless as rain. Fear will knock loud and insistent, pounding on your door, rattling the windows, shouting through the cracks. The world will scream for your attention, drown you in noise, in headlines, and notifications that buzz like flies you can't swat away. You'll have days where the weight feels like too much, where you're tired to your marrow, where doubt creeps in like a thief, where you wonder if you're cut out for this, if you've got anything left to give. I've had those days, weeks even. Lost my dad a while back, cancer, fast and ugly, and it broke me. Didn't post about it, didn't tell many, just sat in his old chair, staring at nothing, asking, why him? Why now? Felt like God was silent, like I was swinging its shadows. But one night I opened his Bible, beat up thing, pages crinkled, and found a note he had scribbled. A Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength. Read it, cried, prayed, okay, you're here even in this. Didn't fix the hurt, but it helped. You have a choice, shrink back or step up. Hold fast or let go. The road isn't easy. Jesus didn't sugarcoat it. In John 16:33, he said, in this world you will have trouble. No ifs, no maybes, no fine print. Trouble is guaranteed. Sickness, loss, betrayal, bills, the slow grind of waking up to the same fight every day. But he didn't stop there. I take heart, he said, I have overcome the world. The enemy is loud, screaming through headlines that choke your hope, whispering through doubts that steal your sleep. But he's already lost. He thought he had won when Jesus hung on that cross, blood dripping, breath fading, sky black as despair. But 3 days later, the tomb was empty. The stone rolled back. Angels laughed. Death gasped its last. Satan's plans shattered, sin's chains snapped, hell's gates cracked. What? That's your victory. Not a maybe, not a we'll see, but a done deal, signed in blood, sealed in glory. Your struggles, God is carrying them. Psalm 55:22 says, cast your cares on the Lord and he will sustain you. your good deeds he sees. Matthew 10:42 promises a reward for even a cup of water given in his name. Your fears he is bigger than. Isaiah 41:10 declares, so fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. Your time is whole. Hebrews 3:13 urges, encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today. So today, what will it be? Fear or faith? Silence or surrender? The choice is yours, but the power is his. Step into it. Don't hesitate. Don't overthink. Don't overthink the perfect moment. Don't let the world drown out his voice. Mute the phone, close the app, turn off the TV, and listen. Keep some things between you and God, not out of shame, but out of trust, out of reverence, out of knowing he's the only one who truly understands it all. Stand firm, feet planted, shoulders back, eyes up. Press on one step, then another, even when they feel heavy. The battle is his, and the victory is yours. Signed, sealed, delivered, yours to claim.